We're going to have an interesting conversation on today's San Francisco 49ers report. Trey Lance has been working out with Patrick Mahomes as throwing coach this offseason, and that same coach said that Trey Lance has made a substantial jump, changing a lot of things with his mechanics and a lot more. We're going to dive into it, but first, I want to hear from the faithful right now in the comments section because I took a look at the analytics, and we have people of all ages watching us from literally all across the globe. So what year did you join the Niner gang, and what year did you become a San Francisco 49ers fan? I want you to let me know down in the comments section, and let's start the show here. Spring is here, summer weather coming up around the corner. Don't you want to look good and feel confident as well? You can do that with Bird Dogs, a brand new sponsor under the Chat Sports umbrella and right here on the San Francisco 49ers report. Head to birddogs.com, use the promo code CHAT, and upon making your first purchase, you get a free Yeti-style tumbler to keep your coffee hot or your water and other beverages cold. I love their shorts, and I want you to experience the comfort of Bird Dogs like I have myself. Are you looking for shorts and pants that not only look great, but feel great as well? Look no further than Bird Dogs, the best in the game. As a regular viewer of the 49ers report, you know we're all about personal stories, like the one we're about to talk about with Trey Lance today, and Bird Dogs has one to share as well. With spring here, summer coming up, I've been wearing Bird Dogs for their amazing fit. Not only do they make me look great, but they make me feel confident and comfortable all day long. I love their stretchy fabric. I wear these when I'm going out for a run, hitting the town with some of the homies, or here at work at Chat Sports. They hug your legs in all the right places. The material is top-notch, so you get what you pay for. I like how flexible the shorts are as well because I need freedom of movement in my life. Don't believe me? Try them out for yourself. birddogs.com, promo code CHAT, and when you make that first purchase, you get a free Yeti-style tumbler. Bunch of different styles, bunch of different colors available to add to your wardrobe. Check them out. You will not be disappointed. So here's the skinny on Trey Lance here, and shout out to Matt Barrows, who put together a great article on The Athletic. He spoke with Jeff Christensen, who is Patrick Mahomes' throwing coach, and he was able to offer some really fascinating insight about the development of Trey Lance and some of the things that Lance has been able to accomplish this summer, but also what he's changed in Lance's mechanics, which really did need to be overhauled a lot more than any of us knew. That's the importance of some of this journalistic work, right? So the skinny on him is that Lance worked with Mahomes' throwing coach. His name is Jeff Christensen. He has worked with about 200 professional and college quarterbacks throughout his career. And Christensen said he had to retool Lance's mechanics, basically break them down and rebuild them. He said that Lance has made some significant strides throughout this offseason. I said this summer, but you get what I'm talking about. And he had to address his throwing motion as well as that lingering arm soreness that Lance had dealt with, which was reported on last year as well. Lance would throw a bunch of footballs and do that for a couple of straight days. Then he would need to take a day off because his arm hurt. Usually you hear about that with baseball pitchers. It is extraordinarily rare for that to happen for a quarterback when you're throwing a football because different velocity, different movement with that arm, and it's a completely different motion. The finger that he hurt during his rookie year and the arm soreness, we come to find out, were real problems for Trey Lance and have been the first 2 years of his career. Accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. That's the biggest thing that Trey Lance needs to work on. And that's the biggest thing, in my opinion, that's held him back from convincing Kyle Shanahan that he can be this team's starting quarterback. In Kyle Shanahan's offense, you need to be able to get the ball out on time, in rhythm, and accurately to the playmakers like Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and more, so that they can catch the football and pick up yards after the catch. That's what Kyle Shanahan's scheme is predicated on. But for Trey Lance, He's been awful with the accuracy, and that's the one big thing that's held him back up to this point in the first 2 years of his career. And you might say that he's had a limited workload with only 4 starts to his resume, but he was behind Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy in completion percentage last year in the preseason as well as in the regular season. And going back to his rookie year, sometimes Lance would miss some of these layups. And in those 4 starts, he's completed less than 55% of his passes for less than 800 yards, 2 touchdowns, rushing yards 235, 1 rushing touchdown. But for Lance, he just needs to be able to complete some of those easy throws and reads more consistently. And if he's able to do that, we know that he has the strong arm. We know that he has solid athleticism. When I've looked at the tape, I do think that Trey Lance has good pocket feel and pocket mobility. But if you go out there and you hit a couple of throws, but then you're airmailing others and you can't complete some of the simple routes within an offense, you can't be a consistently successful quarterback in the National Football League. So we're going to go through this athletic article and take apart and break down, dissect some of the key tidbits to it. So let's start with this. When they first started working together in early March, Lance's arm would become rather tender after 3 days of intense work, and he needs to take a day off for rest and treatment. That doesn't happen to quarterbacks who have the right technique, Christensen said. By the end of their time together, the problem had improved. Christensen said his lessons with Lance, which were held in the Dallas area, wrapped up with a particularly vigorous session, one in which Lance threw 150 footballs. The quarterback left for the Bay Area that night, certain he was going to be in pain the next day. And Christensen said, I called him Frisco on Saturday at noon, and he thought for sure his arm would be killing him. And I said, okay, how's your arm? He said, I cannot believe I woke up and it was not sore at all. So there are a couple of things here, and Christensen did say that some of the issues with Lance's throwing mechanics were substantial. And a couple of things can cause some of that elbow and arm soreness. If you're dragging your elbow to a certain degree, I played baseball, so I dealt with that from time to time. If you're changing your arm slot and your arm isn't used to those different slots, that can lead to some issues as well. The snap on the arm, the follow-through on the arm, all of these things can play a role, but also your lower body is really important with your throwing mechanics as well, with your front leg, your back leg, your torque on your hips and your core. Like, all of these things really do play a part. And here's more from the Athletic on Lance here. The issues with Lance's throwing motion initially were substantial. Christensen said that it usually takes him a day to diagnose what's wrong with the quarterback's delivery. Not with Lance. With Lance, it took 4 days. But once he figured out the root cause, there was steady progress. Lance's accuracy improved, the spin on the ball increased, and the delivery time became shorter. And with Lance, previously, we would see that not only was he a little bit inaccurate, but sometimes that football would wobble, and he wouldn't throw a tight spiral. Has this been cured now with him working with Jeff Christensen? That's important, of course, from the accuracy standpoint, but from a catchability standpoint for the wide receivers. It's much easier to catch a football at the tight spiral as compared to a wounded duck. And it is interesting that if Lance's mechanics were this bad for so long, and he was so raw coming out of North Dakota State, and the Niners maybe had some hopes of him starting as a rookie, that they still drafted him and took him over a guy like Mac Jones, who was a lot more polished, who they were also interested in. As Kyle Shanahan has said on the record, came down to 2 quarterbacks for us, Trey Lance as well as Mac Jones. Let's get back to that article. Christensen, great resume here. He's coached nearly 200 college and NFL quarterbacks over his career. That includes Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Patrick Mahomes. He said Lance reminded him the most of well-known client Patrick Mahomes in terms of competitiveness, in terms of his demeanor. It's one of the reasons he had Lance and Mahomes trained together during some of these sessions. He really fit right in. Patrick really thinks the world of Trey Lance. He's just a really good person, conscientious, great word. He wants to be great, and he's one of the few kids whose actions match his words. He backs it up, does Trey. He shows up every day, and he wants to learn, and that's why I teach him. Now, people have always raved about Lance's intangibles. When he was at North Dakota State, a lot of people credited him with having good leadership qualities. They've said that you never have a concern, about him on or off the field. He carries himself in a cool, calm, and collected manner. And I think those things are important as far as tangibles go for a franchise quarterback. And all of this that we're talking about here, what Christensen is talking about, this falls in line with what Kyle Shanahan said most recently, that Trey Lance this offseason has looked the best that the San Francisco 49ers have ever seen him. And the timeline makes sense because Christensen said he worked with Lance in March. Lance has been at the facility in the weeks and months after that, and we've seen clips of Lance throwing at the facility alongside Sam Darnold as recently as within the last couple of weeks, and Kyle Shanahan's been able to see that, and he's saying that Trey Lance looks great. If Lance is able to work out, if Lance is able to display the potential that made the Niners move up and draft him in 2021, this guy does not have a ceiling. He's 6'4", 225 pounds, with a really strong arm. He needs to iron out some of those accuracy issues, but in working with Patrick Mahomes, his throwing coach this offseason, who raved about Lance and said that he took a significant leap forward, have the accuracy issues been figured out? And if that's the case, does that allow Lance to be a little bit more consistent? And if that is indeed true, look out for a big year 3 for Trey Lance and him at the helm at that quarterback spot with all of the weapons around him. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell in the backfield, George Kittle at tight end, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, given the dual threat ability of Lance and the fact that he has a bazooka for an arm and can unlock an element to this offense with the long ball, this offense could be really scary if Lance is able to stave off Brock Purdy and be this team's starting quarterback and live up to those lofty expectations that made him the number 3 pick in 2021. Does this make you believe in him? B for believe. D for doubt. Let me know. Be honest with me. Sound off with what you think. Thanks for watching the show, and don't forget to subscribe.